White walls and ceilings pose problems when it comes to getting great looking shots. In this video, we're going to try and see if we can improve things a lot. This is the starting shot we're going to use as a control here. We've just got a chair flat up against a white wall. I'm going to go put the camera on the tripod and we'll see what this first shot looks like. This is the shot we're going to be using as the control shot. You can see we've got a flat white wall behind me, nothing really much going on there. And we've currently got just one light lighting me, the Aperture LS300X. So assuming you can't actually film in a different location or radically alter the shot to move the subject to a different area of the room, the first thing you can try is to move the subject a bit further away from the back white wall. Let's go and set that up and I'll show you the difference. So the first attempt at making this shot look better, what I've done is I've moved that chair further away from that back wall, and I've kept the distance from the camera to the chair the same, and I've kept the distance from the key light to the chair the same. What that means is we're going to get the same exposure as we did before, but the light from the key light there is actually going to fall off a bit more when it hits that back wall. So we should get that back wall looking just a tiny bit darker and maybe not quite as obnoxiously standing out in its brilliant whiteness. All right, this is what the shot looks like. So I'm shooting at 35mm for both this shot and the last shot, and the byproduct of moving the camera further away is that we're actually going to see a bit more of the room. That may or may not be a problem depending on the location you're shooting in and exactly the look that you're going for. What you should notice, however, is because the key light is positioned further away from the back wall, that back wall should look a bit darker now. Let's move on to tip number 2, and that's to reduce the power of the key light. So up until this point, we've kept the brightness of that key light the same. If we reduce the brightness of that key light, it means there's going to be less light bouncing off that back wall and also less light bouncing off of the ceilings. That's going to give us more control over the overall look of the shot. To allow us to do that, however, we're going to have to increase the exposure in the camera, either by using a wider aperture or increasing the ISO. Right, let's get that shot set up. And this is what the shot looks like. What I've done in the camera is I've increased the ISO from 640 to 5000, and to compensate for that higher ISO, I've reduced the brightness of that key light. As you can see, that's reduced the overall amount of light bouncing off all of these white walls and ceilings. The downside of this approach, however, is because we're increasing the ISO, we've got more chance of adding noise into the image. As an alternative, what you can do is bring the light closer so you don't have to increase that ISO as much. This is what it looks like. So what I've done here is I've moved that key light a lot closer to the seating position here. I haven't changed the brightness of the light, but because it's closer, I've got more light falling on me, which means I didn't have to increase the ISO in the camera quite as much. We're currently at ISO 1600 as opposed to ISO 5000. So you'll probably see a little bit less noise in this image than the last one. By the way, that lantern in the background, I'm just using that to talk to camera in a minute. I've been turning that off for the actual shots. The next way we can try and help to tame these white walls and ceilings is to apply some kind of light control to the main key light. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply the egg crate or the grid that comes with that Aperture light dome, and this will help direct the light a little bit better towards the main subject and prevent a little bit of that light spilling out over to the side walls and ceilings. This is the grid that comes with that light. I'm just going to fit it around the edge here. You can see now if I'm looking at this from the side, we can't really see any of the main light, and as I move around to face it, you can see the light kind of shining directionally down now. And this is what it looks like with that grid fitted to the key light. I'll put links to this light and also this softbox which comes with that egg crate grid in this video's description. Let's see what we can do next to further tame these white walls and ceilings. The next thing you can do is use black cloth, black material, black flags to try and control the bouncing of light in the room. So let me show you what I've done here. First of all, I've just added a little bit of black material there. That's going to stop any tiny bits of light bouncing back from the light and into the scene. Behind me here, I've got this black material. That's going to stop light from the key light bouncing onto that white wall. I've even gone so far as to drape a little bit of extra black material there, and just up there, I've clamped another bit of black material, trying to cover up as much of that white wall as I can. For one finishing touch, I've suspended some black material as far as I can get it above the seating position without actually seeing the C-stands or that material in the frame. Obviously, if you're going to hang material near any lights, you want to make sure it's going to be 100% fireproof. And this is what the shot looks like. All we're doing is using that black material to try and control the bouncing of light off the white walls and ceilings. For all of these shots, I've been using a 35mm focal length. If we were to increase that to say 50mm, it's going to mean we can move all of this black material closer and also reduce the amount of that white wall we can see in the background. Let me show what that looks like. Because we're at 50mm now, I've been able to bring that black cloth closer. It's closer to me, but it's also closer to the light. That means less of the light is going to be able to spill around it onto the white walls behind it. The final thing we can do is try and add a bit of interest to the back wall, if at all possible, by using some extra lighting or some color contrast. So what I've got here is a cheap floor standing lamp, and inside there's an Aperture B7C bulb. You can see that's set to kind of like a warm colour temperature. And then over here, we've got a Lightstorm 60X with the barn doors fitted, and that's creating a kind of slash on the back wall there. And I've set this light to 6500 Kelvin, so it should appear a little bit bluer than the 5500 key light we've got there. I'll show you what this looks like. And now we've really started to conquer those white walls and ceilings. So by adding just a little bit of extra light and some different colours, we've started to add a bit of texture to that plain white wall behind me. Making better looking, better sounding and better edited videos is what this channel's all about. If that's going to be useful to you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.